welcome everybody to a Sunday afternoon in a different way of being in the spiritualist movement via Zoom. So it's a bit of fun, and I have to admit, and different. So you'll have fun with it, Amanda. The last one I had to do was just standing in front of a camera and couldn't see anybody, and so you just got to trust. So it's really good. It's fun. So it's interesting. What I wanted to talk about today was aspects of death and dying, and the understanding that goes around that, because I think here in Australia, our culture doesn't allow us to talk about it enough. And having been touched by 3 deaths in the last couple of months of people that were very close to me, it's something I realised that a lot of people don't really understand the machinations. I mean, we all as spiritualists understand that we're born to die. It's guaranteed, like taxes, so you don't have a choice. But, you know, we don't often go into enough detail about what we want to do when we die. So we all know, yes, we die, we go into the spirit world, yay, get rid of the physical body that's been holding us down. We go into the spirit world, we go, yay, because look at all this stuff we can now remember that we haven't remembered properly when we've been living on this earth plane. And then, of course, we sort of get up there and we go, all our relatives are down there, and we're trying to talk to them, and, of course, they're not responding as well as we might like. We can see what we've done. We can see where we've mucked up, and in this lifetime. And it's really interesting that there are so many aspects of where death's going to take us and what we can do with it. So I wanted to start the discussion, as I've done with quite a few people recently, is talk our way through different bits and pieces. So I'll be looking down at some of my notes. Anyone that knows me knows that I just take copious notes. It's part of who I am, I think. But we know we are born to die, and we, as spiritualists, most of us understand that we chose the people we're born to, the families, the locations, all that sort of stuff. But a lot of people don't want to admit that they've chosen when they're going to die, how they're going to die, and the impacts that's going to have on the people around us. And that's really what it is, because when you've had a near-death experience, or you've been shocked into understanding that, we are human and we can die, then it gives you a different outlook on life. And that's a really good thing, because I think, we should be celebrating life. And one of the things I've been saying for the last sort of 6 months with friends of mine that have passed who have been younger than I am is, one, they're lucky because they don't have to deal with COVID and isolation. But two is life is too short, for what we really want to do. And the challenge in this life, of course, is to get as far forward along our path as we possibly can, and get to a point where we can reach some sort of understanding within our own lifetime of what path we've chosen. So not everyone's going to be a minister or a priest or a monk or a whatever in this life, but everybody's got a journey in this life, and it's all equal to everybody else's. So it's very much realising that your path to death should be one about understanding your own life as you move forward. And sometimes that's not easy, because we don't always understand mental health issues, we don't understand pressure, we don't understand how life throws curveballs at us. And we sit there and we just go, well, what did I do to deserve this? And that's a really hard thing to understand sometimes. And we've all come down to learn different lessons. And for those that believe in karma, and I do, the lessons are there to help us move into the next life with a lot more clarity, with a lot more understanding. But of course, as we reach a stage in our lives where enlightenment is becoming more and more a thing, and we're all sort of reaching a point, then karma starts to impact us a lot strongly as well, or a lot more stronger as well. And so you find karmic things happen to people on this life because of the nasty things they do. But on the other side of that, there's also a lot of good karma can be gained. And a lot of people only think about negative, bad karma. But having lived and spent time with Tibetans and Tibetan monks, they believe very strongly in good karma, and I think what goes around comes around. You do good things for yourself and the people you love, and people on the street, even if it's just give a smile, then that's going to come back, in bucket loads for you. So it's always worth, keeping a chin up and thinking about, okay, is this good? Is it worth giving somebody a smile? Of course it is. It's always worth smiling at somebody and saying, even if you don't say anything major. And I was reminded of this the other day, going down the street, and there was a little kid in a basket, and she would have all of 18 months, and she just took one look at me and started smiling, and she was chasing me around the corner as her mum was walking past, and I smiled back and she waved back at me. And it's those sorts of things that I think as humans we tend to forget to do those things, and we smile at people, and it's really nice. And if you're open to that, it's all very important. But look, jumping back onto death and understanding that, one of the things that I've encountered recently with the passing of friends is there wasn't a care plan involved, there wasn't a will involved, there wasn't an understanding from their partners what they wanted when the other person passed away. And I think these are things that need to be talked about. And I know people go, this is all really morbid, and do I really need a will if I'm only 20, stuff like that. The answer to that is, of course, it's relevant. Yes, it's morbid for some people, but you do need a will. You do need to have a will. You need to update it regularly. It's not anything that has to cost a fortune either. There are free services available. You just have to get online and do some searching and you'll find them. But apart from a will, most people think if they put stuff in the will that it's going to be iron tight and all the rest of it, and especially when it comes to dealing with what might happen if you get sick. And unfortunately, a will is for when you have passed, when you're dead, and it tells people what you want done. But a care plan is something that most people don't think about. And a care plan is something you should, because you might die very slowly from something as horrible as cancer. And if you don't have the right care plan in place, then the doctors will want to try and save your life. That's what they're there for. If you don't have the right care plan in place, it says, do not resuscitate, do not do this. And this is an important part of how you can live comfortably knowing you've done everything you've done right. So when it comes to a care plan, and I'm not sure I didn't actually ask permission to say this, but there is an organisation, a free one, called Care Plan Australia, and they're worth contacting. And so they help you to set things up. And this is important, because if you don't, you will not necessarily get the kind of care that you want when you are sick or when you are getting close to passing. Anyone can step in and say, oh no, you're not allowed to do that, you have to resuscitate them, you have to do this, you have to do that. And that, that can be really conflicting for some people. It's like, turning off the machine on someone you love. If they don't want to be on a machine, if they don't want to be resuscitated, then they have the right to do that. And so having the right care plan, it is a legal document, and it has to be followed once it's signed by the right persons. You can talk to your GPs about a care plan, and if they've got a good open mind, they will help you to get a care plan in place. And that really, like I said, takes care of how you want to die when it gets to that point. So some people don't have a choice. They end up just having an accident or a heart attack. They're gone, finished, done. You don't have to worry about it. But if you've got a family member that is younger than you or older than you or next to you, and something goes wrong and they end up in hospital and there isn't a care plan and you don't know what they want done, then it's going to leave you in a really, really hard place to be and to deal with. And I think most of you would all care about the ones you love and care about yourselves enough to say, what an interesting discussion. And it is a discussion that most of us don't do, and we don't do it well. And that's, again, it's a cultural thing for Australians not to talk about it, because we'll be right, mate. She'll be fine. All those sort of terminologies. But in other cultures, they have a different take on it, and they want to celebrate life. And so, with a care plan and a good will, you'll be able to celebrate life, you'll be able to have a lot of fun, and you won't have to think about it because you'll already know. And it's like things like organ donation. Now, I don't know how many people are online, but I'd like to think that pretty much everybody here would have something that says they're willing to donate their organs. if that's the way they feel. And so I have a card. All my family know that if anything happens to me and there are any bits worth using, then by all means use them, because I don't want to take them with me into the next life or into the spirit world. Now, look, I had a good eyeball there. We can just play with that, because that's not what it's about. But it is worth doing that. It's worth having all of that written down so that you take away the pressure of what is a hard enough time when somebody passes anyway. There's also things like an end-of-life consultant or a death doula. These people are well versed in how to deal with people on the way to the spirit world. And so a recent interview I did with a death doula was quite interesting, because there was a mother and daughter, and they were mother and son, and they were having a chat about death, and he was a primary carer, and he didn't want her to die, and she wanted to die doing things differently, and he wouldn't accept that because it was too close to her. And so by the death doula coming in, she was able to sit down and sit between the two of them and say, right, let's talk about this. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? And they used a whole lot of tools to help bring out what's required to help get an understanding. At the end of it, they both actually wanted the same thing, but they just didn't have a way to communicate that well, because they took on the role of carer versus the person that was dying. And that's an important part of all of this as well, that there are lots of avenues. And I know that you can talk to people within the spiritualist church, whether it's Carol, Lorraine, anyone that's around, and they have an understanding of death from their perspective. But if you're not in that position to talk to people like that, then maybe talking to a death doula is something that we can all do that leads to a very happy ending rather than a very sad one for the person that is still alive. So that is really important. The other thing I wanted to mention, as I keep an eye on my own time, I don't know what time I started, so you might have to, or Carol, you might have to tell me when to stop talking. But fear of dying. It's a really hard thing to talk about, because some people will say, yes, I'm not scared of dying, and other people will say, well, I can't go there. But having a chat with a very special person recently about their journey into death was they couldn't actually get well because the fear of dying was actually working against them. And they were on a chair getting a chemotherapy session after some fairly severe cancer issues. And basically, in the end, she nearly died in that chair. And in that point, she understood that there was nothing to fear. And once she said to herself, well, if that's all it is, then I'm happy to die. And once she did that, she started getting better. And she's now moving around, still going through her treatment. And she went down the Western path and the Eastern path. So she ended up becoming a spiritualist and following that philosophy of life and death and spirituality as different to a religion that she got involved with initially. And so that spiritualism, this aspect of what we believe in, was the challenge to get her through it. I have another mate of mine who passed late last year from cancer, and he was very sick for a long time, and he was a total skeptic. And it was really interesting, our discussions over the years about me being a medium and doing haunted tours with him. He was actually one of my bosses when I was doing haunted tours. And, you know, towards the end, he was a magician. And the thing about him was he was still making people go, wow, how do you do that, when he was in hospital, and days before he died, he was doing those tricks to keep kids happy and all the rest of it. And I had a discussion with him about death one time on the phone, and I just happened to have a really bad cold at the time, and I couldn't go and see him in the palliative care because I was not well. So I rang him up and I said, look, you know, you've got to understand that your skepticism is holding you back from enjoying what you're doing, and that's up to you, that's your choice, because I'm not going to tell you not to be a skeptic. But think about life as a magician. As a magician, you create the illusion of something magical happening, and working with spirit is very much along the same lines for me. I believe it's there. I know the technical aspects behind it. However, it's magical for a lot of people. So, you know, he was shutting yourself, and I'm saying to him, you know, you're shutting yourself off from this beautiful image and picture and miracle that can happen in your understanding based on your skepticism. Yet, on the other hand, you're quite happy to enthrall people with your magic. spiritualism, being, dying, death, working with spirit is magic in my world. It's just a different sort of magic to what he was doing. But it is important that we all understand that everyone has the right to do what they want to do. Everyone has the right to die they want to die, how they want to die, that sort of thing. We choose it. But don't be sceptical about it. Be open about it. Be chatting about it. Be talking about it, and have fun with it, because it is very important that you look at death and dying as something that is just another stage in the journey, and that's important. So I think open, honest discussion is something that I'd be asking all of you to do with those you love, and get conflict resolution out of the way. So if you've got somebody that refuses to talk to you about, this is a loved one, and I probably shouldn't mention my partner here, but quite often we've talked about this subject, and she just says, no, don't want to talk about it now, and puts it off. Well, you've got to resolve those issues. You've got to get to a point that says, hey, when I die, if I die this way, this is what I want done. And put it in writing, care plan, your will sorted, and then nobody can come around and say, no, that's wrong. I don't want you to do that. You need to give them a needle. You need to resuscitate, whatever. Plan it. It's a part of living is planning your dying. And I hope this short conversation really does impact you all on a level that helps, because when you do die, and when someone we love dies that's close to us, everything goes out of control. We don't feel like we're in a good space. And it would be really nice if we did get to a point where we could all go, yep, death is just as natural as living, and it's just that transition. So I hope this gets the conversation going, and I hope that you don't lose anyone during COVID.